Today what we're going to look at is finding the mean. Now remember, the mean is just another name for the average. Okay, so we're going to find the mean and we're going to do it a few different ways. Now let's say we've got this data set. Now if you've already looked at the median, you will remember that the median, in order to find that, we actually need to have our data set in order. But for the mean, for finding the average, we don't actually need to. So however it's given to you, you can simply just use that. Now the mean is just finding the average. So the way in which we do it is we simply want to add all of the scores together to get a total sum. So we're going to add every single one of these scores up to work out what our total is. And once we've actually got our total, then all we do is we divide by the number of scores we have. Now if we actually count these up, we've actually got 8 scores there, and so I'm going to divide by 8. Now when I put this into my calculator, depending on how you put it in, make sure that if you do an actual divided by 8, then the sum is actually in brackets. So you should get a sum of 96, and then we're going to divide it by 8, and we actually get that the mean is a score of 12. Now we won't always get an average that will come out as an integer, as a whole number. We might end up with a decimal, and that's okay. We might just have to round it to the nearest 1 decimal place or the nearest 2 decimal places, or whatever your question asks you for. So let's have a look at another example. Here's another data set. This time we've got 9 scores there. So in order to find the average, remember the average is all the scores added together divided by how many there is. Sometimes you'll see that the average, or the mean, actually has a symbol that looks like this. Okay, that actually means the mean, and it's the sum of the scores divided by the number of scores. So in this case, if we add all these scores up, I should probably write sum of scores there, so we know that adding all the scores together. If we add all of these scores together, you should get a sum of 257, and then we're going to divide it by the number of scores that we have, and we have 9 scores there. So if I do 257 and I divide it by 9, I end up with a decimal. And I'm going to get 28.55555, and if you've got it on your calculator, you'll see that it ends up ending in a 6. Now really your calculator's just rounding there. It's really 28.5 repeater, but we're going to approximate it to 1 decimal place, and we're going to say that it's 28.6. I'm just going to write here 1 dp, so that everyone knows I've rounded it to 1 decimal place. Now that seems fairly straightforward. Add all the scores together and then divide by how many there are. But in the last 2 cases, I had not that many scores to actually add up. What happens if I have lots and lots of scores? How am I going to do it then? For example, what if I get a data set like this? Now, there's a lot of scores there. To be honest, not that many. I probably still could add them all up if I really wanted to, just be a little bit time consuming. And the problem would be that if I made a mistake, well, that would just be a pain. I would have to go through and do it all again, and I would really be not loving things if I did make a mistake. Now, I have even done you a favour in, at least I've put this in order, and the 12s and the 13s and the 14s, they're all together, so at least it's got some sort of a semblance, some sort of order there. The reality would be that it would be all mixed up and all over the place, and be very hard to actually work out what's going on. So before I can actually find the median, when I have a large data set, the best thing to do is to arrange it, organise it into a frequency distribution table. So if you're not sure how to do that, you'll need to watch the frequency distribution table tutorial and learn how to actually organise it into one. So let's organise it now. Okay, so here we go. We've organised it now into my frequency distribution table. I have my score column there, that's my X column, and I've got my frequency column there, which is my F column. Now remember, it is always smart to actually add up your frequency column, make sure that you get a total. I don't know if I've showed you this, but a way of actually saying the sum of something is to actually do a kind of backwards E, or not a backwards E, it is an E, kind of a, I don't really know how to describe it. It's a Greek symbol, it's called sigma, it's a Greek symbol for the letter S. So it's kind of like their capital sigma, and it really just means the sum. And so what we write is we write sigma F, which means the sum of that F column. And hopefully if we've added it all up, what should we get? 10, 20, 30, 40, we should get 48. Hopefully I've added that up correctly. Sum of 48. Now, to find my mean, I'm actually going to add another column. And you probably haven't seen this column, or maybe you have. What we're going to do is we're going to draw in another column here. And this column I'm actually going to call my fx column. Now, it's just like algebra. Whenever I have some sort of algebraic terms that I'm multiplying, if I'm multiplying a times b, well, I simply write it as ab. Well, there's no difference in this case. I'm actually multiplying my frequency column and my score column, and so I write it as fx. Don't ask me why we don't write it as xf. We just write the f first. Maybe it's in alphabetical order. So that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to multiply 12 by 2, 13 by 7, 14 by 8, until I have all my frequency, my fx columns added together. Here they are, all the fx scores in there. And now what I want to do is I actually want to find the total of this column as well. So there I'm going to put my sum of this time the fx column, and I'm going to add up all of those scores there, all of those fx's values, and I should get, hopefully you'll get 708. So my score column's there, my frequency column's there, along with the total, and my fx column's there, along with its total. And now it's just a simple calculation. We've got a formula for finding the mean, and I'll show you that. To find the average, or the mean as we call it, well, the formula is this. Remember, this is our symbol for the mean. The mean is equal to the sum of all the scores. Now this makes sense because remember before how we had them all written out? Well, we actually did have two 12s. So if we added those two 12s together, we'd get 24. We had 7 13s, added them together, and we'd get 91. And then what we've done is we've added all those sums together, and we've ended up with the sum of my fx column, which was 708, and we're going to divide it by the number of scores, which happens to be the sum of my frequency column. And so this is my formula that I use. This is so handy if you don't have a calculator and you're not able to put in the table and let your calculator do the work. Well, then we can actually do this wherever we are. The average is actually equal to the sum of the fx column, so in this case it was 708, divided by the number of scores, and we had 48. And then we simply just put that into our calculator, and we work out that our average in this case is 14.75. Now that makes sense, since the majority of our scores are sort of, clumped around here. In fact, we've got 7, 8, and then 10 and 9, so they are sort of a bit heavy towards this way. And so we do see that our average is in here. And that's always good to just check and see, is 14.75, does that make sense? Sometimes we actually get an answer of, 46, and we don't stop and think, can 46 actually happen? Is 46 possible in this data set? Well, actually, no, it's not, because the smallest score is 12 and the largest is 17. So the average wouldn't be something greater than 17. It's going to be a score within that range. And so 14.75 does actually fall within that range, and so it makes sense. So there you have it. In order to find the mean, we actually add up the total of your fx column and divide it by the total sum of your frequency, or how many scores you have. Remember that formula and you'll be good to go. Well done.